At exactly 10:04 in the morning, while thousands of people were sleeping in their beds, the ground beneath one of the most beautiful cities in all of Europe, just exploded. No warning, no time to prepare, just a violent, terrifying jolt that ripped people from their sleep, sent ceilings crashing down, turned streets into rubble, and left an entire city in a state of pure panic. This is Granada, Spain, one of the most visited, most beloved tourist destinations on the planet. And right now it is shaking, it is broken, and nobody knows if the worst is already over. Welcome back. If you are new here, this is the channel where we do not sugarcoat things. We give you the real story, the real data, the real science, because when the Earth moves, you deserve to understand exactly what is happening and exactly what it means. So let's get into this right now. Becca Hughes, the situation in Granada is still developing as we speak, and there are things happening underground that every single person watching this needs to understand. Let me start with the moment it happened, because this is the part that will make your hair stand up. It's Friday night into Saturday morning, August 15th, 2026. Most of Granada is asleep. Tourists are in their hotel rooms after long days of sightseeing. Families are in their beds. The streets are quiet. And then at 10:04 in the morning, a magnitude 5.0 earthquake, with some agencies revising it upward to magnitude 5.2, detonates directly beneath the metropolitan area near Al-Handin, just 10 kilometers, about 6 miles, south of Granada's city center. The epicenter was located near Al-Handin at a terrifyingly shallow depth of approximately 2 kilometers. And that depth, that shallow depth, is one of the most important numbers in this entire story, because when an earthquake is shallow, the energy does not have far to travel. It hits the surface with brutal, raw, undiluted force. It does not get absorbed by miles of rock before it reaches you. It hits you directly, and that is exactly what happened to the people of Granada. We really felt the shaking. It was so strong that it woke us up. One resident, Marta Mayorga Fernandez, told public broadcaster RTVE from the nearby town of Puerto Vega, "We were here at home, panicking a little. My arms were still shaking," she said. Think about that. Arms still shaking. That is not just someone being dramatic. That is what real, deep, physical fear does to the human body. That is what it felt like to be in Granada at 10:04 in the morning on August 15th, 2026. Spanish television channel TVE showed debris strewn on the street and some damage to cars in the popular tourist city, and Andalusia's emergency services rescued a number of people from damaged buildings. Cars damaged on the street in one of Europe's most iconic cities. Broken tiles from church roofs falling into the pavements. Rubble piling up on sidewalks. Some hotels were even evacuated as a precaution amid fears over the stability of buildings. Think about the tourists inside those hotels. Imagine being on vacation, sleeping peacefully, and suddenly your room is shaking, the lights go out, and you have no idea if the building around you is about to come down. Emergency services reported cracks in buildings and damage caused by falling ledges, walls, masonry, and other debris. Firefighters received around 300 calls and carried out 85 interventions, primarily in southern Granada and the wider metropolitan area. 300 emergency calls, 85 active interventions. Those are not small numbers. That is a city in crisis mode in the middle of the morning, scrambling to deal with the aftermath of something it has not seen in a very long time. And here's a fact that will put this into perspective for you. Officials noted that the last earthquake of this magnitude in Andalusia hit in 1955, over 70 years, 7 decades of relative quiet. And then this, at least one building in Los Gabias has been evacuated preventively. Firefighters and police are reviewing cracks, facades, cornices, and other damaged elements. People pulled out of their homes in the middle of the night, families standing in the street in their pajamas, not knowing if they'll be allowed back inside. That is the reality on the ground in Granada right now. Now, let me show you something that most news channels are not telling you, and this is where the story gets really interesting. And honestly, a little bit unsettling. This earthquake did not just appear out of nowhere. It was building. It was charging. The ground beneath Granada was sending signals for hours before the main shock hit. And if you know how to read those signals, you can see exactly how the sequence unfolded. The sequence unfolded as follows. On August 14th at 4:43 in the afternoon, a magnitude 3.7 earthquake struck northwest of Lubia at 5-kilometer depth, intensity level 4. It was widely felt but caused no damage. Then overnight, earlier tremors of magnitude 3.3 and 2.6 hit the same area. And then, at 10:04 in the morning on August 15th, the main shock hit. Magnitude 5.0 to 5.2. Epicenter northeast of Al-Handin, at a depth of just 2 kilometers. It was the 5th earthquake recorded in the province within 24 hours. 5 earthquakes in 24 hours. Each one closer to the surface, each one tightening, pressurizing, loading stress onto the fault system below. And then the main shock, the release, magnitude 5.2. Shallow, directly beneath a city of hundreds of thousands of people. Now, I want to explain something to you that most people don't understand about earthquake magnitudes because this is crucial for understanding just how much bigger this event was compared to the smaller tremors that came before it. The magnitude scale is logarithmic. T and T or hat means each whole number step on the scale represents a massive increase in energy, not just a small jump. So when you hear 3.7 and then 5.2 and think, oh, that's only about 1.5 numbers higher, you're massively underestimating GG what that means. In terms of actual seismic energy released, a magnitude 5.2 releases approximately 178 times as much energy as a magnitude 3.7, 178 times. The smaller earthquakes felt before the main shock. They were nothing. Hey were tiny taps compared to the sledgehammer that hit at 10:04 in the morning. That is how the logarithmic scale works. That is why the difference between a 3.7 and a 5.2 isn't a number gap. It's a completely different category of event. And immediately after the main shock, the earthquake map literally exploded. Aftershocks began firing off in rapid succession. Seismic activity continued across Granada province throughout the morning, with scientists Rico ordering a series of smaller aftershocks ranging between magnitude 2.2 and 3.7. These secondary tremors affected several nearby municipalities, including Armilla, Alendin, Gojar, Otura, and Lubia. Within hours, at least 35 confirmed aftershocks of magnitude 1.5 and greater were recorded inside the local cluster. And that number is almost certainly an undercount, because the monitoring systems primarily capture the larger events. There are smaller micro-earthquakes happening constantly that don't even make the official list. But here's the question that matters. The question the scientists nobody knows for certain. Being evasive or hiding information. The emergency phase of the seismic risk plan of Andalusia, depth and intensity to assess whether the emergency remains. Let's talk about why Granada. Why this Granada sits in the heart of Andalusia in southern Spain. Two of the most massive tectonic plates on the planet are other at a rate of a few millimeters per year. A clean, visible fault line the way you see in California. The Granada Basin contains numerous active structures. West of southern and southeastern Spain and part of the Pyrenees have dimensions physically capable of producing, but I want to be precise here, because precision matters. I take you back to Christmas Day, December 25th, 1 to 200 people, and caused damage. D-intensity levels of 9 to 10 on the scale. Another historical earthquake that matters enormously for understanding. And here's something else that deserves attention. Granada right now is in the middle of peak summer tourist season. This city draws millions of visitors every year. People from all over the world who come to see the Alhambra, walk through the Albaicin neighborhood, and experience one of Europe's most culturally rich destinations. Right now, those tourists are there. The event occurred during the busy summer travel season, raising immediate questions about visitor safety. Hotels evacuated, streets covered in rubble, emergency services working through the night. That's the situation tourists are waking up to this morning. An AFP journalist in Granada saw a pile of broken tiles that had fallen from a church roof, with tourists stopping to take photos of the cordoned-off site. Tourists taking photos of earthquake damage at a church. That image tells you everything about how surreal and unexpected this is. Nobody comes to Granada expecting to see earthquake rubble in the streets. Now let's get back to the real critical question. What happens next? There are a few scenarios scientists are watching closely. The first, most optimistic scenario, the aftershocks continue to decrease in size and frequency over the coming hours and days. The 5.2 turns out to be the main event, the peak of the sequence, and the fault slowly returns to quiet. This is the scenario everyone is hoping for, and it is statistically the most common outcome following an earthquake of this size. The second scenario is more concerning. The aftershocks do not decrease smoothly. Instead, another earthquake of magnitude 3 or 4 appears, suggesting the fault is still adjusting, still releasing stress along a wider or deeper section of the rupture zone. This would extend the emergency phase and require continued vigilance. The third scenario, the one nobody wants to say out loud but that scientists must always consider, is the possibility that the magnitude 5.2 was not the main shock, but was instead a foreshock to a larger event. Statistically, this is re. Most earthquakes of magnitude 5 are the main event, not a foreshock. But it happens. And in a region with Granada's geological history, with fault systems capable of magnitude 6 and larger events, this possibility cannot simply be dismissed. It's low probability, but it's not zero probability. That is why the emergency plan remains fully activated. The things scientists are watching right now to help distinguish between these scenarios include the magnitude of continuing aftershocks. If they keep getting smaller, that's a good sign. If they start getting bigger again, that changes the picture. They're also watching the spatial distribution of the aftershocks, where they're occurring on the map. If aftershocks start appearing in new locations, spreading outward from the original cluster, that could indicate the rupture is propagating along the fault, which would be a more concerning sign. And then there's depth information. The main shock at 2 kilometers depth is extremely shallow. If aftershocks are occurring at varying depths, that gives scientists information about the geometry of the fault that caused this event, which fault system it was, and what that fault might be capable of next. Right now, as of the latest reporting, the largest aftershock recorded since the main event reached magnitude 3.3. The regional government continues to coordinate between provincial councils and affected municipalities to share information on damages, needs, and priorities. The emergency is active, the monitoring is intense, and the situation is still developing. For the people of Grenada and the surrounding communities, the message from officials is clear. Stay calm, but stay alert. Do not re-enter buildings that have been marked as unsafe. Stay away from facades and walls. Follow the guidance of emergency services. Regional authorities esto. Published a telephone helpline to assist residents experiencing anxiety and distress after the earthquake, because beyond the physical damage, there's a psychological dimension to earthquakes that's often overlooked. When the ground you walk on, the most fundamental, the one you trust to be solid and stable, suddenly moves beneath you, it changes something in how you feel. The anxiety is real, the fear is legitimate, and it doesn't go away after the shaking stops, because every small tremor, every vibration, every sound makes your heart jump, because you don't know if it's another one coming. That is the human reality of what is happening in Grenada right now. The good news, and there is good news here, is that so far the worst case outcome has not occurred. No casualties or serious structural damage have been reported. Officials confirmed the historic Alhambra Palace remained unaffected. For an earthquake of this magnitude in this densely populated urban area, that outcome is remarkable. It's a testament to the emergency response, to building improvements made in recent decades, and perhaps to some degree of fortunate timing and location. But that good news does not mean the story is over. It's not over. The fault beneath Grenada is still being monitored. The aftershocks are still being counted. The buildings are still being inspected. And the scientists are still watching that earthquake map, tracking every dot, every new event, looking for patterns that will tell them what comes next. This is a region that has been shaken before, not just in 1884 or 1431. The Earth does not forget. The stress that has been building along these fault systems for thousands of years does not disappear after one magnitude 5.2 earthquake. It redistributes. Some of it releases. Some of it transfers to adjacent sections of the fault. And the process continues. Grenada is beautiful. Grenada is culturally irreplaceable. Grenada is beloved by people around the world. And Grenada is sitting on one of the most seismically active fault systems in Western Europe. Those two things are both true at the same time. The beauty and the danger coexist. They always have. And the people who live there know this, which is why, despite the fear, despite the shaking arms and the sleepless night, they are already beginning to clean up, to assess, to rebuild, to move forward. Because that's what you do when you love a place. You stay, you watch the earthquake map, you follow the emergency guidance, you check on your neighbors, you help clear the rubble from the street, and you hope, with everything you have, that the next number that appears on that seismic monitor is smaller than the last one. Stay safe, Grenada. The whole world is watching, and we are watching that map too. If this video gave you information you didn't have before, hit that like button right now. It takes 1 second and makes an enormous difference to this channel. Subscribe if you want to stay updated as the situation develops, because I'll be bringing you every significant update as it comes in. And share this video with someone who needs to understand what is really happening in Spain right now. The comment section is open. Tell me where you're watching from. Tell me if you felt this earthquake, and tell me what question you want answered in the next update. To the Alhambra itself.